Aloha and good afternoon. I'm Dylan Ancheta in the Hawaii News Now Digital Center. We are awaiting a news conference with Honolulu Mayor Rick Blangiardi regarding the upcoming City and County of Honolulu budget for fiscal year 2025. They're just getting set. They're over there at Honolulu Hale. Let's go ahead and listen in as he begins this news conference. Once again, our mayor is just getting set. This camera signal just popped up, and he is going to be discussing the budget. Looks like he's starting now. Let's go ahead and listen in.
I'm very proud to present the highlights of our proposed 25 budget to you today. I can only say on behalf of Andy Kawano, our Director of Budget and Fiscal Services, and Ms. Carrie Castle, who's also the room, our deputy, and the entire team at BFS, as well as all of our directors. I want to commend all of them for a lot of hard work. This is a $3,519 budget. That said, there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of lines to that. It's not easily done. Quite honestly, I think they begin working on the budget 5 minutes after the last one was finally approved. It's just that. But this is our third budget that we're submitting. We actually did four. The first one we were barely in here for just a couple of months, and it was not reflective. Quite honestly, we're just balancing the books from the prior administration. So we've had two budgets that reflect our priorities. This budget certainly does, and this budget provides us with the resources and the direction that we clearly want to take. I want to let Andy take you through the numbers, and I don't want to take anything away from his presentation, but I am going to bring up one issue. Our priorities, which is what the budget is about, are reflective of our commitment to build affordable housing, clearly what we're doing with homelessness, what we want to do in the modernization of DPP, certainly public safety is up there, core city services, and et cetera. All of that is there. But I will tell you, when we get to the affordable housing number, since it is our number one priority, you're not going to see a number as big as it was last year. And I'm going to take the jump on it and tell you there's a reason for that. It's a very significant reason. In that we really want to have kind of monies, color of money, if you will, in the bonds that we want to get, that we can build the kind of housing that we want to build for lower income families. That said, the way the current monies were appropriated would only allow us to build, in essence, projects or tenement housing with no amenities. And so we are right now across the street at the legislature with some 3 different bills getting laws changed that would allow us to build mixed use. So you'll see that we have not spent the $205 million from a year ago, and the allocation this year of some $23 million, roughly. But don't confuse that with any less of a commitment. In fact, our commitment is greater than ever to build what's right and what will work in the marketplace. We're really focused at the 80% AMI and below, because we understand that that's the pressure point, that's the real need, and we're committed to doing that. So I just want to tell you that in advance. Now, that said, I think Scott's already told you, for those of you who are copious note takers, there'll be a copy of all of this today for you in addition to the press release. I look forward to answering any and all of your questions after Andy gets done. Let me just tell you though, you're going to see a lot of numbers. It's the story behind the numbers. It's our commitment behind the numbers. Having the numbers directed the way we wanted to, being able to create a budget that's reflective of our priorities, where we want to write our checks, where we want to invest the money, is something we stand behind, because we know it's addressed to the greatest needs in our city. And so to that end, we're committed. I'm very excited to share this information with you. So without any further ado, and again, I want to give a special shout out to Andy Kawano, our Director of Budget and Fiscal Services.
Thank you, Mayor. You're always so kind with your words. Hope I don't disappoint you. Okay, the budget, fiscal year 2025. At the very top, we have an operating budget of $3.6 billion and a capital improvement budget of $919 million. The operating budget increased more than $200 million from the prior year. Due to very specific reasons, this budget was difficult to balance. All of our cabinet members that make up the department leadership throughout the city sacrificed so that we could balance the budget. You know, everyone, I believe, diligently went through their financials, discussed the needs with their staff, and came up with department-level budget proposals that they felt were justified. We all didn't get what we wanted. We all sacrificed and took some back, hopefully for maybe a future year. But we got it balanced. And like everything else, the city has to deal with the inflationary pressures, you know, supply chain challenges, and high interest rates that we all challenge each day of our lives. We all get challenged by each day of our lives. So specifically, with regard to the increase, due to the final year of the collective bargaining agreement that we signed in 2023, the cost of our labor with fringe benefits increased $87 million. We're going to talk about a budget contingency that we have in the FY25 operating budget of $80 million later. So that added to the budget. We had to increase operating equipment funding for FY25 because since the pandemic, there was a slowdown and capacity issues by a number of our suppliers that provide heavy and light equipment, vehicles, to the city so that we can carry out our operations to serve the public. So we're catching up from that standpoint. Our waste collections operations have costs that are continuing to go up. So we funded an additional $32 million for the solid waste collection operation. And obviously, debt service has increased. We have 21 million more in debt service in FY25 that we project we're going to have to pay out. So that all adds up. You know, there are some other smaller pluses and minuses in our operating budget, but that resulted in the $200+ million increase on the operating side. With regard to the CIP budget, the Capital Improvement Program budget, at $919 million, we actually are coming in with a budget that's lower by $420 million. And that's because of the nature of the capital improvement budget. When we budget each year, our appropriations cover 2 years. So the budgets that we put out annually overlap year after year. We have to schedule out some of the larger projects that make up most of the CIP dollars that we budget for, and projects take time. It takes time to plan, design. We have assessments we have to do to comply with law. And by the time we get the contract in place to actually break ground and start work, we're talking a year, 14 months, 15 months, 16 months have elapsed. So projects, larger ones especially, take a while to commence. And that's why our CIP budget covers 2 years. So every year we call out a CIP budget that the mayor proposes. It covers 2 years. So keep that in mind. What decreased from last year? Last year's budget was about $1.34 billion. What decreased was with regard to overall sanitation improvement projects. Due to how we schedule our larger projects out, we didn't need as much this year. We reduced sanitation CIP proposals by about $120 million. With regard to affordable housing and homeless projects, as the mayor stated, while we are all in it together to create more affordable housing units, we were able to go in with a smaller number, about $23 million, as opposed to $260 million more last year. And keep in mind the appropriation last year, which is this year actually, is good for 2 years. So what we had appropriated in 23 for 24 will carry us through 25. And then what we appropriate this year for 25 will carry us through 25 and 26. So keep that in mind. We'll go through some of the activities and programs that have the most significant impacts to our budgets. With regard to affordable housing, as Mayor mentioned, we have in our 25 budget $22.8 million for affordable housing development from our charter fund. And this is in addition to $205 million that we had appropriated for this year, for FY24. So again, the FY24 number is good for 24 and 25. What we appropriate for 25, the 22.8, is good for 25 and 26. We also have appropriated $3 million for planning and design for affordable housing development near the Iwele-Kuvili rail station. And we have $5 million in our operating budget for the construction of affordable rental housing units on smaller lots. And that's tied to Bill 1, Bill 7 that we can talk more about later. So again, significant emphasis in housing. All of our departments work together. We support each other. We're led by the mayor, our managing director Formby, our deputy managing director, and our office of housing. They hold things together, and we collaborate to support the housing initiatives that we have. With regard to serving the homeless, we've set aside $19.5 million in the operating budget, $12.3 million for the continuation of the successful Housing First initiative, and the vouchers we provide to help people that are at the very lower income levels have housing, being able to have shelter over their heads. We're proposing $3 million for the Homeless Services Center at Iwele Center and $1.1 million for Punawai Rest Stop in Iwele. So those are some of the larger components of the 19.5. And in addition to our budget for FY25, similar to housing, we have the carryover from the current 24 CIP budget of $55 million to house the homeless and to develop and build facilities for services for the homeless. So we have most of that $55 million still available for the rest of this 24 fiscal year and for next fiscal year, FY25. Our public safety and health agencies, including police, fire, emergency services, and ocean safety, have a combined operating budget of $626.7 million. That's about 17% of the operating budget. We have a CIP budget for FY25 of $10.5 million for improvements to the HPD headquarters and substations. We have $14.9 million budgeted for HFD's fire station improvements and relocation projects. And we have $3.5 million budgeted for ambulance facilities and ocean safety stations. On a combined basis, we've committed $650 million to public safety and health in the operating budget and CIP budget, as proposed by the mayor. With regard to transit and transportation, the mayor continues to prioritize funding for this functional area. We have budgeted $427.7 million for the operations of the bus, the handy van, and Skyline, the rail operation. With regard to road surfacing and road rehabilitation work, we've budgeted $64.5 million. And with regards to keeping up with refreshing and modernizing our city buses and handy vans, we have $54.9 million set aside. The maintenance of parks and improvements, are important as they enhance public recreation, athletics, and provide gathering places in clean and safer spaces. So we believe in continuing to invest in parks and recreation. Our budget this year includes $117.9 million in funds for park operations and maintenance, and a total of $55.8 million for CIP projects with regard to park improvements, including $24.6 million set aside for clean water, natural land, charter fund expenditures for the acquisition of preservation and conservation lands on Oahu. The Mayor's budget reflects the administration's commitment to fund global consent decree improvements that have been ongoing. As such, the budget includes $417.8 million for global consent decree improvements for treatment plants and pumping and collection systems. The budget includes an additional $27.5 million for solid waste improvements, collection improvements, and an operating budget of $375.7 million for the operation and for the funding of the activities and services of the Department of Environmental Services, which oversees both wastewater and solid waste services for this island. And then earlier we talked about the budget contingency. We have an $80 million provision, as I mentioned earlier, for potential payments to essential employees who are at risk of exposure to COVID-19 during the height of the pandemic. We've set that aside as we continue to pursue collective bargaining settlements and if not, settlements through arbitration. So we're working on that, with the unions and, with the various employee groups of the city. So with that, at a very high level, I know that was a lot of numbers. We'll take questions. And I just want to thank you all for your time and thank you for having us.
Nice job. Don't leave. I want to say fire away. You stay right here.
I was just going to say that now.
I know, Mayor. So the $80 million contingency, is that these, we just saw Maui settle,
Right.
Shopo, is that anticipation of that happening here?
Yes, it's in anticipation of a settlement. We've not gone there yet, but that's the carve-out for it, yes.
What do you expect it to be?
I don't have a number in mind right now. We're in serious conversations. We're hoping that number will do. It took a lot to get that done, and so we'll go from there.
I have a question about the detail of that $80 million. So I know part of that, so I think all of it came from American Rescue Plan money that had been reprogrammed from other programs. And I know that first $40 million or so, I think a mayor's message had mentioned that the money had been drawn from projects that seemed unlikely to meet that deadline of the 2026 spending, I think. The second half of that money, the $39.5 million or something, is that the same case with that half of the money where it seemed unlikely that those projects would meet the same deadline?
Yes, we followed the same approach that you explained. And the key deadline to remember is 12/31/24, December 31st, 2024. That's when the ARPA funds have to be appropriated, or they call it obligated. So you need a contract behind it, or you have to have received services or provided services, and you have invoices that have to be paid. That kind of situation. If you have contracts, you have from the end of calendar 24 to the end of calendar 26, 2 years to actually expend on the contract if you have contracts in place. So you're right, Ben. In all of these cases, we carved out or pulled back funding that for programs and projects that we knew wouldn't get off the ground in time.
Yeah, but if I can just add to that, I mean, it's an appropriate use of the funds. The federal government, when they awarded these monies to the various communities, municipalities around the country, this comes under that usage. But at the end of the day, money's got to come from somewhere. So it helped us in making decisions on what was feasible and what we could get done. But at the end of the day, $80 million allocated for one thing is $80 million that could have been allocated for something else. I mean, that's the reality of it. And that's so we, as a form of almost triage, if you will, that's how we set our priorities on what was feasible. But as far as use of the funds, and that's what they were awarded for these situations. And as I understand it, other municipalities elsewhere have done the same thing.
And then a sort of follow-up. So I know now there's that $80 million that's sort of set aside just in case. We don't know what the number is yet for the hazard pay. But if the number for hazard pay is much lower, for example, like 20 million or something, that still leaves 60 million that has to be spent by the deadline. So what is the plan going forward in that kind of scenario?
Well, if we're that fortunate, then we'll go to work right away and go right back to the list of things we think we want to get done, how quickly we can get done. I mean, we want to stay very sensitive to this pending obligation. We know what the precedent that's been set. We know what's happened in Maui. We've had conversations with all of the unions. It's not like we just haven't got into our final negotiations right now, but we've had extensive talks. Mike Formby, our managing director, has been at the table talking with HGEA, UPW, and certainly I've had conversations with Shopo as well. So right now the tone is good, the mood is good. We'll see where we come out.
Have all the ARPA funds been, the rest of them, have they been obligated? If not, how many, or how much is left?
We are far along, in terms of obligating the balance. If by chance we determine in the ensuing months that we may have funds that free up, funds that we cannot spend on time, we would probably make plans to add to, the set aside that we have for this contingency.
And then going back to the affordable housing allocation, of the 205 million from last year, how much is being carried over to this year?
Yeah, I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but we use a large chunk of the 205 million to acquire Evile Center. So we allotted a portion of the appropriation to acquire Evile Center, and there are smaller amounts that we've used. So I would say, if I were to throw out a round number, and don't hold me to it, is we probably spent about $60 to $65 million of it, and the rest we have available for the rest of this fiscal year and next fiscal year. Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb and tell you, I think you can anticipate announcements from us going forward on the housing front. It is our number one priority. I just this morning took a really good meeting with Denise and Seri Matsubara, head of housing, and I'm encouraged by the things that are in the works right now. And it's our goal not to have any of this money lapse. We want to put this to the highest and best use. We understand the absolute need. In fact, we've put a stake in the sand with respect to our commitment to what we can build in affordable rentals between now and when we finish. And it's not a small number, so we have a lot of activity in the works.
Just to follow up on that, if you could walk us a little bit on, coming in so strong last year with 205 and then this year with less than 23. Was that the consideration that it was going to be carried over for the 24 months?
Yes. Yeah. I started out this meeting today saying this is our third budget on a going forward basis. We've really had two that are reflective of our priorities. This last one last year, where after that first year we started to really mobilize in our thinking and actions and what we needed and how we could do it. And as I said earlier, it's about the color of money. We want to be able to make sure we can spend the money to the highest and best use, and that has to do with mixed use places that we want to build. It's about social equity. It's about envisioning TOD projects and all that. That stuff just doesn't, you just don't have money here and then we'll just assign it there. There's a lot of strategy and thinking that goes into this, how we can best allocate it, and that just takes time. And so I feel really good about it. I opened up saying that. I feel really good about what the third budget gives us. As Andy said, look, could always use more money. we knew that it was finite, we had the overall mandate to balance the budget, but at the end of the day, we kept our priorities intact, and especially with respect to the nuances within those priorities, and that is to spend money predicated on social equity against a lower AMI. We talk about affordable against 80% AMI, and we're committed to doing that. That takes a lot of figuring out. But I feel really good about our plans, and I'm telling you right now, I'm going to go on record of telling you, we'll be making a number of announcements in the months ahead on things that we're doing. I'm also very proud of what we've done so far. I think Waikiki Vista, in and of itself, which we're using to house homeless families and begin doing that, was a significant investment. I think Eva said, and the potential of that, and what we see in TOD, the First Hawaiian Bank acquisition that we made on Dillingham, other ongoing conversations, these are really transformational, and they're designed to really improve the quality of our city. And it's a vision and an action taking place by us that, quite honestly, there really wasn't a whole lot of precedent for. So we're operating really strategically in that regard, and as anybody knows, you want to develop a good plan, especially with something as complicated as this, it takes a while to do so. But I think we've got a really good game plan ahead. So this is the budget, is sort of the foundation, and now we're in that executing phase. And keep in mind, we still have 3 more months to the last budget. I guess we get to June, I'm sorry, June 30th. I can't even believe today is March 1st. I don't know about you folks, but I just feel like I said Merry Christmas 5 minutes ago.
As far as
true.
at the beginning you spoke about sacrifice, what was the sacrifice that the city was making this time around?
Well, this is the Grim Reaper here. This is the guy saying no at the table. I'll let Andy come up and answer that.
It runs the whole gambit, you know. So you have departments coming in. They want to set up, let's say, a new section for new services that they want to provide, you know, outside of the core that the department already provides. Well, we had to weigh that with, you know, perhaps adding more capacity in ocean safety, perhaps adding more funding for equipment for the police officers or you know, the firefighters. So that's what we had to do, and everyone sacrificed. So when I said that earlier, is that, you know, we all came in, even BFS came in with our budgets. We present to managing director and deputy managing director, and we all advocated for what we thought we needed, what we felt good about. But at the end of the day, we only had so many dollars to spend. So everyone didn't get what they wanted. You know, everyone left something at the table. And as I said earlier, you know, maybe it's a deferral. We come back next year and can do it. But you know, we all did our best, and we feel good about what we did. And I have to admit that I felt that all of the departments sacrificed and worked as a team. You know, no one complained. There was no negative talk. We kept it positive, and we feel good about it. Feel good about the budget.
Yeah, I think I want to echo that, because I don't get a chance often enough to talk about it. But one of the things that's happened now, 3 years in office, is, and with some tweaking, admittedly, is the building of our team and the kind of cross-sector collaboration that we have going on and the understanding. So while you would always like to have more money, $3.5 billion, $3,549,000 to be exact, is not a small amount of money. And our mandate to them is, look, we may cry a lot of things, but we're not going to cry poor here. You've got money, this is what you have, you figure it out, let's put it to the highest and best use, let's not let funds lapse, let's make things happen. It's your responsibility, you have enough to work with, there'll be another day, another time. It's that kind of approach, and as Andy said, a lot of cooperation. I'm really proud of this team, okay, because I see how they come together, and I understand the potential in all of that from my own past experiences, but with this particular group, it's really outstanding because they're all committed in serving this place we all call home, and it's really inspiring to work around. So everybody understood it was going to be a tough year. No drama, no complaints.
As a follow-up question, is there going to be any pay raises for pay hikes for the executive management, for yourself, for the...
Not for me.
That's not going to be presented to the salary commission? Nothing will be presented this year as you did last year?
If I get asked, the salary commission, I'm not putting in for
nothing has been
raises.
presented to the salary commission?
I understand, though, the salary commission has initiated something that I don't know if I'm at liberty to talk about, but there's no pay raise in it for
So there's
me.
no 12.6%?
No, there's none of that here, no,
Like last year,
no,
or 23?
no. Let's straight up.
Mayor, so my property taxes are going down, thank you. So that though indicates that a lot of people's property taxes are going down. Are you worried about that coming in for the next budget?
Well, let me put it the other way. I'm not interested in raising property taxes right now. So again, we deal with finite amount of money. This is not a small amount of money. That is our primary revenue stream. How do we make it work at this point in time? Because, you know, at the end of the day, property taxes, I'm happy to hear that, are coming down. That hasn't been across the board. Some people had increases in property taxes as well. But it is less money. At the end of the day, we're still dealing with a highly inflationary cycle. We're still dealing with interest rates being what they are, albeit coming down. Food prices have gone really high. We have low unemployment numbers, but we all know our Alice population, people living paycheck to paycheck, is real serious. So, you know, we're looking at that. I can tell you this, we weren't counting on it. In fact, that's why we did what we did last year. When the assessments came in, it surprised all of us, and I was open about that surprise. We went ahead and we carved out, you know, a reimbursement plan to really basically create another, I think it was another $100,000 in home ownership for the 152,000 homes, came up with $200,000 home exemption. I'm drawing from numbers in the past, I got a lot of new numbers in my head. But, you know, that we wanted to even curtail that last year. And we did. So I think we're staying very sensitive to that particular topic. I think more than anything, when it comes to housing, as opposed to thinking about that end of it, it's about how much housing can we get built. You know, and we need, I'm a firm believer that we just need more inventory in the market, which will help in a lot of different ways. And and I believe the city has a role in that engagement with the private sector to be a partner, if you will, and be able to stimulate housing. And that's everything that we're doing is designed that way.
I have a question regarding, I think Andy had mentioned waste collection got an extra $32 million. Can you just break that down a little bit? Is that like for trucks? So I think there was a press release that the trucks have been an issue with supply chain.
Yeah, it goes across the board. You know, it's everything. So salaries, fringes, current expense, operating expenses, and for solid waste, the trucks. You know, we're still catching up in terms of replacing the fleet, modernizing the fleet. So the operating budget includes the budget to replace operating equipment. And as you know, those trucks that pick up trash, they don't last very long because, you know, they pick up a lot of toxic materials, they rust, they corrode, and they have to be replaced. So it's all of that combined.
When you say that, when you're talking about everyone made sacrifice, were there any departments in particular that took steeper cuts and others that maybe got booked up a little?
We all took it across the board based on you know, the size of the department and the needs. But I can say that the smaller departments, you know, emergency management, the medical examiners, operations, to some extent, I would say. Department of Land Management to some extent in some areas didn't take much of a hit because you lose a position, it impacts you more when you're smaller, right? So it depended on size a lot of times, but everyone sacrificed. Not the same, but you know, in a manner that you know, they can survive with and operate with. They took less.
Yeah. Last year, HPD got a $43 million increase. Did they get an increase this year?
Sure they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mayor strongly supports public safety. When you open the budget booklet, when it's posted, you'll see that our operating budget for police is about $370 million, so it went up.
So it went up by how much?
About 6%, I think, off the top of my
That was
head.
reflected with a 3-year deal we did.
Yeah, most of it was salaries.
Salary that we
Yeah,
did a
and
couple of
fringe.
years ago. You know, and that was in design, in part, one of the many steps we took to try to help our police department build its police department. I want to go back actually to what you said though. You know, it's not so much taking the cutting, it's the understanding of making sure we prioritize right. That's the difference between the last 2 budgets and this one versus the first one. We had no say in the money. That's how it opened up today. So this is about an allocation of resources, financial resources, aimed at our priorities, knowing full well we could use more, but, okay, to give the people who are responsible for execution in those areas enough resource, so at the end of the year, there's no excuse. We got done what we said we we're going to get done. It's all measured, okay? And so that's what we wanted to be sure we did. So when we were allocating monies or making cuts, it was with that in mind. Can we get done what we think was reasonable to get done in the next 12 months with the financial allocations we've made? And that's sort of what the thinking is. That's how you execute that strategy, more so than what we cut. Is let's make sure we cover the bases the way we want to cover the bases, because we're looking for high impact. Okay? That's what we're looking for. You know, we're already begun to do some things, and it's very gratifying when the community says, I can't even believe this is happening. As Lynn just said about property taxes going down, which I can't necessarily direct, we want to have people have those experiences over the impact that we're creating. Because I've said it before and I'll say it again. We are about rebuilding trust in local city government. We know that that comes through our actions and our deeds, but maybe more important than ever, and what is still a post-pandemic environment, is creating hope in our community. And we take that responsibility to heart, especially when you start talking about how you deal with homelessness, how you deal with housing, how you deal with public safety. These are real things that impact all of our lives. We're all in this together. And so we make no exceptions there. So in operating the city, we look at that to make sure we have enough. That's the way we do it. Any other questions?
Just to follow up, I guess, one last question from me.
Sure.
With the increase...
I won't make it your last question. You can ask another one if you want, but go ahead.
Okay. With the increase going to HPD, I guess, are there also talks to make sure that they are staffing up, right? Having the officers...
We're doing everything we can to recruit for the police department. You know, we've worked with them, the raises, which is part of it. You know, we're out now, we're recruiting. We've worked with flexible hours, scheduling with them. You know, I think if we had Chief Logan in here, he would tell you that at every discussion that Mike and I take, and we meet regularly with HPD, you know, it's how can we help you, what can we do? The truth of the matter is, you know, people signing up to become police officers is become very challenging and very difficult, not just in our own backyard, but across the country. And so it takes a heavy on recruiting effort. But I don't think pay becomes a deterrent. Let me just put it to you that way. And so it really is a life choice, a career choice, and we're doing everything we possibly can to make the police department as attractive and as viable as possible. We're not alone in this. We are not alone in this. Anybody else? On anything?
I have a question.
Yes, Ben.
When it comes, I know that...
Maybe I should stop encouraging the questions, but go ahead.
So with the EVLA Center, I think my understanding is that a lot of the priorities there is like developing mixed-use kind of housing. And I think like right around now, there's a bill being heard across the street
Correct.
Allowing mixed-use housing. And it was originally deferred, I think, and I know it's a big priority for you guys. And so I'm wondering like how the outcome of that bill affects the budget and spending on affordable
I don't know if it's going to affect the budget per se. What we're trying to affect here is a lifestyle issue. This is about social equity. People who are going to live in what we intend to build there should be able to get off a train or a bus or however they get there and be able to have those amenities available to them. You know, you don't want Safeways only in high-end or Whole Foods or whomever is going to be in there in the retail or even other amenities there. That should be incorporated into how people live their lives, and that's how we want to see it executed. In fact, I did a tour last year in Chicago on a Mayor City initiative. They actually asked me to come up there. They walked us around, and I was really familiar with Chicago. And it's a very gentrified city, as we all know. But they showed me some of the buildings that they had originally built that were all housing, and how they took out the first couple of floors because of what it was doing to the community, and then converted them to retail spaces and whatever, and saying to all of us, don't just build housing only, okay? I mean, that's just one example. We want to make these livable spaces where people can feel proud and feel good about where they live and their hard-earned money, because we know that people working and living at an 80% AMI are really pushing hard. They've got hard jobs, they need all those monies, and when they come home, they ought to feel like they got some good value for their money. That's what we're trying to create, man.
Yeah, well, I guess like a follow-up, just to make sure I understand correctly too. And I don't really know like the timeline of the development for EVLA, but
Yep.
I guess what I could foresee is like if that bill doesn't pass, and so the city is not allowed to develop mixed-use housing,
We're gonna fight for that bill. I feel pretty good about that bill.
What does
So
it just
stop
mean,
jinxing
like-
it.
Does that just mean like hold off construction, hold off development until next year when we can maybe get a bill?
I don't know if we're gonna hold off. We have to go through a whole process. We have plans in the interim for Evil A. We're gonna continue with those plans. We know what our vision is, and I will tell you, in this job, you don't take the first bump in the road and just say, okay, I can't get over that. In fact, a lot of what we're doing is knocking down those walls. So I'm hoping that we'll be successful. The argument is very compelling. This is about humanity. This is really, when you start talking about how do we serve the community, it's this kind of stuff. And I have a hard time believing that that will get blocked. Okay? That's how I feel. Anybody else? Dare you ask? Hey, look, it's great. I really appreciate it, if I can just say this. Coming to a budget presentation, I know some of you personally may not be the most exciting things. For you, some of you, I could never get you to do that in my former life. But I'm really appreciative of the fact that you're here today to capture this and whatever stories you tell. I want to end by how I started. I want to acknowledge our BFS department and the leadership of Randy and Carrie in the corner and all the men and women in there. They understood what was behind the budget. This is not just about balancing numbers. This is about meaning and purpose and impact. And everybody's bought into that along with our directors, and that's what we're trying to convey today. The numbers are what they are. It's up to us to execute the way we hope we will execute, the way we intend to execute. Thank you.